I just like... Welcome back to Sad Luke, a channel where I talk all things Collingwood and all things that made me sad about a loss and last night's game. So, last night was something else. If you watched my previous video, I went in thinking that it was going to be a 30-something point win. Jamie Elliot's going to come from the heavens and kick 4 goals, and I could not have been more wrong. I don't know. I couldn't be more wrong. So, by now it's sort of sunk in, another round 1 loss. We've been losing round 1 since 2015. This time it was to the Cats by 7 points. Missed chances, turnovers, poor decisions, tackles not sticking, everything that a professional team should be doing, we didn't do. And our season that was so full of promise has started with a loss. But in saying that, the game was sloppy from both sides, and it was neck and neck for most of the game, not for lack of trying with all our missed opportunities. I feel that Collingwood play as well as their opponents, and what I mean is, like, it happened quite a few times last year where if we were versing opponents that were bottom 8 sides, we'd match their skill level, we wouldn't put them away like we usually would in the years prior. Make basic errors, maybe thinking that, oh, this is going to come easy to us, we'll win, we'll win, we'll win. And when you go in with that mentality, I don't know if they did go in with that mentality, but when you do, yesterday happens. So we had the biggest lead of the game, which was 11 points. That was at half time. We spent most of the second quarter missing goals, out on the full. We kicked a bunch of behinds in a row before we could convert. That's the stuff that costs you. When you're 50 and missing goals that you should be. Grundy missed one from, 15, not even 20 metres out, but I guess these things happen. So in the end, an inexperienced Cats side beat us by 7 points with, of course, Tom Hawkins kicking the sealer with, of course, his 500th goal. He couldn't have written it better himself. If there was one person I didn't want kicking the sealer, it was Tom Hawkins, but what can you do? So let's start off with the bad. I feel like we were just so rusty. Coming from the grand final up until now is a 6-month break, but it's not like the boys aren't doing any training or anything. From all reports, they were going well, but who doesn't go well during pre-season? Clean bill of health for most of the players. I feel like I feel like it wasn't a coercive performance. That could be because it's our first proper game with everyone playing, and we're just not used to how everybody works. But I just felt like our big role players turned to bit players, and our bit players turned to rookie players. I feel like most of the guys just stepped down a notch. A handful of them were superb, but unfortunately, you need every person in your team to be firing for you to win a game. Decisions. So I don't want to turn this Swoop Luke into a place where I hark on about someone and there's all this negative connotations and I'm roasting the players, and that's not going to happen. But our decision making was really poor. 2 of the times that pop up to mind was Tagoe. Love him as a player, one of my favourite players. The first one was when he marked it in the pocket in our forward 50 and went for a shot. As a right footer, he went for a shot from a left-footed angle. I'm pretty sure he kicked it out on the full or snuck in for a behind. But that's the sort of stuff where you kick it to the top of the goal square. I feel like he was trying to prove a point. He was just trying to go for glory. But in those situations, top of the goal square, Cox is there, Mychek is there, probably Grundy. We got all our crummers playing, so Elliott or Stevenson or Josh Thomas, Dane Beams, Callum Brown, I could list everyone. That's where they do their best job, instead of a low conversion rate at goal from that position that Tagoe was in. The second one was, of course, what everyone's going to be talking about. Farko's over-the-top handball to Tagoe free in the goal square, and then instead of turning around and wheeling and kicking at goal, he hand-passed to Josh Thomas, who was under pressure, turnover, and the Cats take it away. The third thing I want to talk about is handballing. I mentioned it in a couple of videos ago where I felt like we were playing this handball game where someone under pressure would just handball to someone under pressure. A chain of handballs would just be handballing for handballing's sake, and we wouldn't go anywhere. That was really evident yesterday, and something that we stamped out last year, but I felt like it crept in. I don't know if it was the guys thinking that a run and carry was going to work, but after 5 or 6 handballs, if you're not going to kick, the other team just going to swarm onto you, and a turnover is just costly at that time, especially in the middle of the ground. But let's not harp on about the bad things. Let's talk about the good things. The backline held up really well. Geelong had 10 more inside 50s, and although we did lose the game, I don't feel like it was entirely the backline's fault. I feel like that the midfielders weren't pushing defensively enough, but the backline did do their job as best as they could. So talking about the backline, more. Wow. I said that he's going to be that intercept marking player, and that's exactly what he was yesterday. 4 intercept marks, 12 spoils, another 4 intercept possessions, and he didn't lose a one-on-one. This is Moore's position now. He's going to take this position by the horns, and he's going to make it his own. I love the way he goes about it, especially after 2018 with all those injuries, missing out on being included in the grand final as a late inclusion. But as good as he was in the JLT series, he was even better yesterday, and that was one of the biggest positives to come out of last night's game. And for me, he was best on ground. Another really good thing is Elliott. 3 goals, looked lively. You can tell that he's a little bit off where he was in 2017 or even earlier than 2017, but it's like having a brand new recruit. He did really well with the possessions that he had and for the balls coming in. And I predicted last video that he'd kick 4. He ended up kicking 3. But that was a really good return. I think he went down to the rooms. I was reading something that he might have went down to the rooms for an ankle injury, but he came back, and not for lack of trying, he could have won us the game. But the more game time he gets into him, the better he's going to be, and he's just going to do really well the rest of the season. We've got to think that it's only round 1. There's still 22 rounds to go. What happened last year? We lost round 1, lost round 2, and we made the grand final, and we were, a minute and a half, 2 minutes away from being 2018 premiers. So this is just a blip. The boys came back rusty. It's not like we lost by 50, 60 points, 7 points. If we had accurate kicking, we could have knocked Geelong out the park, but unfortunately, these things happen in football. There is so many positives to come out of it. More Elliott. Treloar got a bunch of disposals. Sure, he didn't hit a lot of targets, but he picked up where he left 2018. And the biggest one was we came out with a clean bill of health. So during our post review, which is this video, I'm going to do a predictive in and outs for next week. I feel like Aish is going to be dropped. I know it's only 1 game in, but he wasn't clean with his possessions. His decision making was really poor. I feel like he might drop out for Greenwood to come in and Greenwood to play that tag role against Martin. I don't know why he wasn't playing the tag role against Selwood, because he pairs really well with him and he wins more often than not. So that's all for today. Like, subscribe, comment. This is my first post review of an actual game. Let me know how I go. It's a 6-day break till we take on Richmond at the MCG on Thursday night. Bring them on, because if there's one thing I would love to do, I would love to open up those wounds from the preliminary final that we inflicted on them and pour salt straight into them, hoping for a big win, Cox to kick a few. But just wait till the preview for all of that. Swoop you later.